Good evening and welcome. This is a meeting of the Special Education Advisory Committee of the Halton District School Board for Tuesday, the 4th of June, 2024, our final meeting of this school year. In accordance with Ontario Regulation 463-97 and guidelines effective February the 1st, 2021, HDSB promotes community engagement and participation by having processes in place for members of the public to ask questions. A Google form was attached to the agenda distributed in advance of the meeting and is also posted on the HDSB SEAC website page. Questions posed during live stream meetings of SEAC may be answered during the meeting, particularly those that relate to agenda items, or at the following meeting at the discretion of the chair. For efficiency, multiple questions received that are similar in nature may be grouped together at the discretion of chair and or vice chair. Questions will not be attributed. Notation will be made that multiple people ask the same question. Any questions that contain language that is hateful or discriminatory will not be considered. So first of all, we'll start with a roll call to record who's in attendance. Please answer yes or present. Kate Lambacher.
Present.
Sarika Kanethi. Amanda Winch. Yep. We'll come back to Amanda in a minute. Jennifer Laguerre.
Hey.
Present.
Okay, I'm present. Nadina Torek.
Present.
Evelyn Bursey. Melissa Dockery. Sarah Lansley. So we'll go back to Amanda. Amanda, you're present?
Yeah.
Thank you. We got you there. That's great. Sophia Siddiqui. Erin Rupel. Erin Sproul.
Present.
Kaiser Claassen, I saw your message that you're here. Okay. Katie Schleifer.
Present.
Naveed Ahmed. Carol Baxter.
Present.
Joanna Oliver. And Yin, Jin
Yes,
Zhang. And again, I apologize. I will get this at some point. And then tonight we have Colette Ruddock.
Good evening.
And Conan Sproon.
Good evening.
We also have some other staff members that we'll introduce as they come. So I'm just going to confirm. Amanda, you had a question. You raised your hand.
I fully don't have a question. I was just admitting that I'm here. When you called my name, I hit the wrong button.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Just going to check quorum now, okay? Thank you. That is great. We have quorum, and so we are able to start our meeting. First of all, we'll begin by honouring the land. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Attawandaran, the Haudenosaunee and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honour and respect the four directions, land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us. So for our first point, we're going to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any modifications or amendments that need to be made? If so, could you let me know in the chat? Would anybody like to move a motion to approve the agenda?
I will.
Okay, so we've got Erin. So is that Erin Sproul?
I'll second it.
And then we've also got Carol Baxter as a seconder. Is there any opposition to the agenda as it stands? If you oppose the agenda, could you please indicate that now? None being seen, the agenda is approved unanimously. Next is the approval of our May the 14th, 2024 meeting minutes. Are there any errors or omissions? Would anyone like to move a motion to approve the minutes? So we have Amanda, thank you. Anybody to second the motion? We've got Jennifer. Is there any opposition to the minutes as recorded? If so, could you let us know now? None being seen, the May 14th meeting minutes are approved unanimously. Okay, so we're now going to move on to our action items. I think we've got a fairly busy evening. So first of all, I'm going to ask a member of the Ember Experience team to present their work to us on the multi-year plan. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. I'm Jesse Adams, and I've got my colleague Ashwarya Jaya Prakash with me as well. We're actually not going to be presenting work. We're going to be giving a bit of an orientation to the multi-year plan and then inviting some perspective sharing and feedback. I just want to make sure that's aligned to your expectations.
That's great. Thank you.
Perfect. So that's aligned then? Just to be clear.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Awesome. So maybe just to set the stage for the conversation today, what have been working with over the last few months is engaging with various parties throughout the HDSP community. That includes senior staff, students, community partners, various affinity network groups, Indigenous treaty partners, the Indigenous network within Halton, really trying to create quite an extensive net of gaining insight from the various perspectives of what Halton might want to consider for identifying priorities as well as concerns or strengths that we can consider in the development of that multi-year plan. So some of you, I think I've had the opportunity of connecting with both in person and virtually. But the way that we'll facilitate this conversation today, we have 3 overarching questions to work with those on the call. Because we're in the virtual setting, what I'll do is I'll share the question and then give some space for individual reflection. And then I'll invite if anyone has something they would like to contribute to the conversation. And I'd ask for you to, when sharing, particularly for those who've been a part of information gathering to this point already, to really think about it through the lens of this committee and the purpose of this committee. Not so much, whether it's your role as a senior leader or a staff member or a trustee. We want to really look at the lens through the needs of this group here and what you're here to advocate for and share in terms of the future of that plan. So after inviting some feedback, if no one sort of jumps in right away, I'll circulate the various tiles on the screen here to give space for everyone to share. As well as if you feel eager to add something, feel free to add your comments into the chat box, as well as just raise your virtual hand, or if you want to turn on your camera, you can just wave and I'll ensure that we get around to everyone so everyone has space to share. Does that make sense for everyone? Everyone feel aligned to the expectations and what we're hoping to accomplish today?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome. Alrighty. So my first question that we're curious about is when you think about the top 3 priorities required to foster both teacher as well as student learning and well-being, I'd be curious for you to share what would those priorities be. And if helpful, Ash, I don't know if you could just even pop them into the chat as well, just so that people have opportunity to see written text as, in addition to my verbal text or questioning. So again, just to give space for reflection, from the perspective of this working group and committee, what would you see are the top 3 priorities to foster teacher-student learning and well-being within HDSB. I'll give you a moment for reflection, and then if you have something you want to jump in with, feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, I'll invite feedback in a moment. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Catherine. Why don't you get us started?
So that wording is too open-ended for me, and I know that sometimes helps people, but it's doing the opposite for me. So when we're talking about staff and student learning, can you put some rails on that so I can understand the kind of thing you're looking for here? Well-being, I think I can deal with, but by staff and student learning, what do we mean? That's too open-ended for me to narrow down thoughts on.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, and it's intended to be such, but I'm happy to help kind of guide some thinking so that you can get your wheels going, as you said, and create some boundaries for you. It could be things like the conditions, both physical and socially, culturally that would need to exist. So, for example, perhaps it's technology, or perhaps it's ensuring the accessibility, availability for all people, or providing different learning modalities, or it could be creating a culture of psychological safety and inclusion. It really could be anything, big and small. Like, we're really just interested to hear what might this group consider as those critical factors to foster that. Did that help for you, Catherine?
I think so. Are we willing to open this up to families? I guess from my perspective of being on this committee and who I'm representing, it's often a circle that includes the family of the child, because often the parent or guardian is the advocate and the person who needs specific support from the board and from the school in order to help their child receive the services that they need, and are a critical part of it. So I would really like to see families in that, and that we can't separate the family from the student, because especially for special needs, special education, the family is often, their advocacy is critical in ensuring that the student receives appropriate services, and they're not there.
That's a really great perspective. Yeah, no, that's excellent. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, so feel free to build on that idea, and I even, for me, feels that would be a critical element or priority to consider of how are we integrating families into that development for the teachers and students themselves. So it's really insightful. Thanks for sharing. But I'll give another moment for reflection, and I'll invite others to share.
Hi, Jesse. I'm happy to share. I'm not on the call. I'm in the main room.
Oh, perfect.
So you may see me in a little box down there. So I've got, again, building on that, access to accommodations that enable our learners to engage fully with the curriculum and to achieve their full potential. For me, I think the top priority is a safe and caring environment. So elimination of stigma that often is, our children feel, and basically having a welcoming, inclusive environment where all in the classroom are taught about the fact that everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and that just because somebody's different doesn't mean they're lesser. And then leading on from that is using strength-based approaches. So while a child may not be great at math, they may be outstanding playing volleyball. And so it's really trying to have the whole team lift up our students by focusing on their strengths, obviously recognizing they need support in areas where they're struggling, but having a change in the ethos where it's not just about academics, it's about who we are as people. And that, what I often say to my kids is that many of the things that we struggle with at school are going to be what makes us successful in life after. Just recognizing that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Catherine, I saw your hand come up, so we'll go to you next, and then we'll kind of circle around to the other tiles on the call. Are you still on mute, Catherine, if you're speaking?
I am, thank you. So I have two. I'm going to start with resiliency and what it means for the individual child and how important it is to have every child have a bit of struggle, but just enough that they can overcome enough to feel that they have successful moments. And I think there are a lot of children who are in our, in this generation of children, from what I know from my own children, from their friends, from other children I interact, there is a lot of struggle with building resiliency, both because they're either not being challenged, they're being cushioned too much, and they're not getting those moments where things are really hard and they realize they can get past that, or we're not setting things at a level where they can have the success moments that they realize this is really hard, but I can get to the other side. And I think every child, to have confidence to build their learning, needs to have set point where it's difficult but overcomable, something that they can feel that they have truly achieved something that was a reach for them, but so both within reach but also not easy. And that is the thing that makes children and adults confident that they can move on to the next hard thing, is having a little struggle but also getting over that and realizing that they can get past that. And if we don't set a curriculum and a goals for students where they get that, both an achievable goal and a goal that's hard enough that they really feel that they are going to struggle a bit but they can get past it, then we're not building resilient adults, which I think is necessary for their well-being in the long term in their life, and something I see as lacking in a lot of kids right now, and that builds anxiety and all kinds of other things that really makes a lot of children struggle with their well-being. And the second one is consistency of messaging and the improvement of the information that gets to parents who receive identifications through the school board, because the number one struggle that I have seen in my position here on SEAC over the last couple of years in supporting parents is that depending on the school, depending on the SRT, depending on the principal and the CERT, that family is going to get more or less information about how to support their kid, how to build an IEP. And we're not seeing consistent materials that describe the services, describe the kinds of accommodations that might be available, describe resources for their specific identification, especially if the board psychologist and the board itself has played a role in that identification. We're not doing enough to make sure that all parents are receiving accurate and consistent information between schools. And that means that some parents are not being supported adequately, and then they can't support their kids and they can't advocate for their kids. And we should be giving every family who receives an identification the same messaging. It should not be so dependent on that SRT, that CERT, that principal deciding how to communicate information about services, about programs, about identifications. There needs to be consistency. There needs to be common materials so that we're giving equal, accurate messaging to all families.
Thanks for sharing, Catherine. Anyone else want to jump in before I start going around? Sarah, yeah, please go ahead.
Hi, I just want to sort of bring it back to basics. And see, I think a priority is accessibility. I'm representing Easter Seals. So,
Sarah, sorry, can I just, your volume's very low.
oh, is it? Okay,
Yeah,
let me see.
thank you.
I don't know.
It may not have chosen the correct mic source. You should use the little caret up next to the mic and make sure it's chosen the correct mic source.
Thank you. It says it's using the built-in mic.
That would be from your laptop versus your headset.
Yeah, you
there.
need to change it to the headset.
Yeah, bear with me 1 second.
No worries.
Okay, can you hear me now? Has it worked?
It's still pretty much the same, but carry on.
Well, I'm just going to disconnect the headphones and just talk into this.
Okay, how's that? Is that better?
That's much better.
Okay, now I can't hear you. Anyway, I just want to bring it back to basics. I'm the alternate rep for Easter Seal Society, and I think actual physical accessibility to buildings. So, I mean, the AODA was enacted how many years ago now, and that sort of thing, and I think we need more than just sort of a sign that says, you know, a blue symbol on a parking spot or a button for a door. Sometimes these buttons are blocked with tables or, you know, being invited to go to another school because the school isn't accessible. So I think having a welcoming environment, starting with not having sort of people with physical disabilities being an afterthought, but sort of involved in the design. Sorry, I'm distracted. There's little people everywhere. In the design process, like people with actual lived experiences, just because they say wood chips are sort of the standard for accessible playgrounds, doesn't mean someone in a power wheelchair can actually access that playground. So yeah, just bringing it back to basics, like actually have a building that people who need, you know, whether it's actual Braille signage or, you know, whatever it is, like barrier free, not just sort of accessible on paper. That's it. Sorry. Thanks.
That's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Sarah. Can you hear us now? All right, awesome. Any others want to contribute to the question?
I think there was a question from Aaron.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Thanks.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I was just going to maybe build a little bit on what Catherine was saying, but more around communication. I think something that's really important is communication between, you know, the school and the teacher and the certs all in the school, and you know, in our case, if there's for our kids, if there's itinerant teachers, because you know, sometimes I find you know, we don't have, you know, there's not good communication, say, between an itinerant teacher and you know, and the family. Like everyone should be on the same team, but also having, I think, just maybe more of a standard of communicating, because I think that if parents aren't really on top of things and advocating, it's really easy for, you know, to not get those updates on how your child is progressing until, you know, the regular reporting periods. And I think that our kids need maybe a little bit more attention in that way, and especially if there's concerns or they're falling behind in areas, you know, we should know about it as soon as possible, because it's a lot easier to take corrective action, you know, sooner than later.
Yeah, it sounds like something that seems to be a bit of a theme is like creating the system or infrastructure to support the humans and families and students versus relying on the individual to figure it out for themselves and having their passion, resilience be the factor that determines success. Like it sounds like that real system elements is really critical. Cool. Did you have anything else you want to add, Aaron, before I jump to,
Nope,
I'll go to
Amanda.
Thanks, Aaron. So I'll go to Amanda, and then I'm going to go to Carol afterwards.
I just wanted to follow up on basically exactly that. I found throughout my journey with my own son and then with my stepdaughters as well that more often than not, the IEP comes home and you have to sign off on it, sure, but there's no actual meeting where it's explained. Now, for me, that's fine. I understand and I know what I can and can't advocate for. Been doing it my son's entire school career. But I'm not the norm. And so to have these IEPs come home and the family is signing off, but they don't even know what they've really signed off on. They don't know what the other options were. They don't know what other types of services or accommodations, like the ability to do the test verbally rather than written, or that sort of thing. Like, there's all of these modifications that are well within reason, that is very possible, but without that meeting explaining to the parent that this is what your child is entitled to, they have the IEP, how can we best support your child? And sitting down and having that actual meeting rather than just sending home the IEP and saying, well, this is what you need to sign.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thanks for sharing, Amanda. Carol, we'll come to you.
Thanks so much. When I was listening to Catherine or to Kate, and then hearing Erin sort of build on that, and now Amanda, I'm kind of reminded of the healthcare sector and this idea of care coordination. And so, there's a lot of similarities between education and healthcare, in which you've got multiple people involved in supporting, in this case, a student. And it sounds like maybe what we're hearing is coordination issues. So the expertise and the service is there, but maybe the coordination, the communication is where some of the issues are arising. And I'm wondering if does that sound like the kind of thing that's needed? I just ask that the people who've just spoken, maybe if they want to circle around and comment on it. At healthcare, you'd have sort of a care coordinator, so that one-stop person who makes sure that things happen when they're supposed to happen, and to check in and ensure that the parent does understand what's going on. With the multiple, I know some of our students do have multiple teachers and various service providers that are involved in supporting them. Is that kind of am I kind of thinking in the right direction there?
So, Kayla, you're kind of saying like that person would almost act as like a guide or as like the internal advocate to help navigate the various challenges that may come up because they understand it and they're like your person. I just wanted to make sure I'm clear.
That's actually a great word, Jesse, the navigation piece. Now, understanding we already have limitations on staff and availability and resources, so maybe a bit pie in the sky. But that idea of coordination and supporting parents in that way, would that sort of fulfill some of the issues that have been raised?
Interesting. Those that have contributed, Catherine, Erin, Amanda, did you have anything you'd want to add in onto Carol's ideas?
Just to kind of jump in, I feel like that is something that is sort of already offered, or at least it is in navigating the autism when you get your actual diagnosis. I don't know if it would be very helpful, but I mean, maybe. But even I think just having something as simple as the CERT sit down and explain. It doesn't have to be a long meeting, but I mean, just something where they're just sitting down to explain. I think having what you're explaining with the care coordinator might be good, but it's also going to add another position where we're already having all these cuts. I feel like that money could be better spent elsewhere rather than in that type of department where someone like a CERT
could effectively do the same type of position.
Catherine, yeah, go ahead.
So imagine that we had a set of resources where there were example IEPs explaining various kinds of adaptations, why they were there and what they were intended to do to help. It doesn't have to be a person. People are expensive. We have no money. Everybody knows. But there are things that could not, it wouldn't help everyone in all circumstances. But if we had more standardized materials, it might lessen the burden on the system and improve the consistency of messaging. And for those parents who are capable and willing to use those resources, it would be a huge advantage to them. And again, it might lighten the burden on the system and improve the success of those parents working with their SRTs and their teams to, develop something that works for the child and the teacher in the school. Parents literally, they don't know what even to ask. They don't know what works. They don't know why something would be beneficial. Both of my kids have had things on their IEPs that are absolutely useless, and I don't take the time to have them removed, but they're boilerplate. They seem like things that just get stamped on every IEP. We're making meaningless IEPs if we're not having an opportunity to look at individual accommodations, why they're there, and how they might support your specific child's needs. The parents often know quite a lot about what their child needs and what they're like, but not necessarily what to do to help. And so if we can bridge that gap between educators who know what to do to help, but may not know the intimate details of this child, that would go a huge way to success, in my opinion.
Okay. We'll go to Erin and then Jennifer, and then I'm going to shift gears slightly.
Yeah, thanks. So I guess I was going to just mention, I think Amanda was talking about IEPs, and actually a few people have touched on IEPs, and I think maybe it's not just about IEPs, but I think it comes down to this whole idea of a system and a navigator, but accountability, I think, is important in making sure we get it right, because in my own experience, and the number of times that we counsel people will come to me, whether it's from the Halton board or from elsewhere in Voice, we get parents coming and asking us, we're having these problems, and I'll say, well, what does it say in their IEP? And parents go, oh, well, I'll have to go look at that. And then we go look at the IEP and really basic things that should be being followed by the, in the school aren't being followed. It's already in the IEP, but it's really difficult. And this comes back to my original point is this communication, and that, if you're not the parent constantly, it feels like nagging, it doesn't get filtered through from, to the CERT and to the classroom teacher and maybe to the other teachers in the school. Typically if it's, elementary or up to grade 8, middle school type thing, typically the students have, one teacher most of the time. And that teacher is usually pretty good. But the accountability for all the other teachers, the music teacher, the gym teacher, the French teacher, to make sure that, their IEPs are being implemented correctly, it's really difficult for a parent to be going, okay, well, what happened in French today? Oh, it was a listening test? Really? You're not supposed to have listening tests. Okay, what happened in, gym, those sorts of things. So I think accountability around IEPs, in my view, would be really important.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Aaron. Jennifer, we'll go to you.
Awesome, thank you. I think all of these are just really speaking to the point that parents and educators don't necessarily understand what the accommodations mean on an IEP. And even educators don't necessarily understand what something as simple as chunking means in terms of providing assignments to students. So instead of having a care coordinator or a position, a person, having infographics like, hey, this is what chunking means, and this is on, my IEP, or hey, I have, a written communication disability, and what types of accommodations can I use to help me with that? What do those accommodations mean? What would they look like in the classroom? And if educators aren't always clear, like Erin was saying, if educators aren't always clear and there's no accountability to make sure that those accommodations aren't followed in a classroom, and perhaps it's because the educator doesn't understand what that accommodation means, how can we expect parents who aren't in the system to be able to understand and then adequately advocate for their kids?
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, Jennifer.
Right? Like, we need something easily accessible for parents who, especially for parents who English isn't their first language, don't have post-secondary degrees, are new immigrants. We need, yes, the F words was exactly, but we need to have that accessible for parents.
Yeah, something that really is speaking loudly to me, even within the conversation elements here, is, what if the parent doesn't possess the means or the capacities or the know-how in doing all these things? I can only imagine, to what everyone's sort of raising, that there's a lot of vulnerability that can then be created in terms of things falling through the gaps, probably not of ill intention, but just people are busy moving and trying to get everything done. And so it really speaks to the needs of system and tools and resources to help support as much as possible.
Jesse, can I just very, very quickly jump in?
Yeah.
Just wanted to make note for all of our SEAC members that York Region has come up many years ago, with what is called a waterfall chart. And for many of the issues that our kids face, particularly LDs, ADHD, autism, there is a clear outline there of what would be the recommended accommodations and the reasons behind that, and how that would be, what that would look like in the classroom. So if anybody wants to look up, so it's not a case of having to reinvent the wheel. A lot of the stuff is out there. What we just need to do is make sure that people have access to it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
If that's the case,
go ahead,
sorry
Amanda.
to jump in. Like, if that's the case, my son's in grade 7. I've worked in autism, and I'm on the here with Autism Ontario. Never have I even heard of that, let alone seen it. So if that actually is a thing, then that needs to be circulated. Like, your kid gets diagnosed, here's your paperwork, and maybe a few times, not just when, like, even every time the IEP goes out, then it's added as a photocopy. Here's the IEP, here's some of the recommendations, because I didn't even know that existed. So for the fact that I didn't know, I can guarantee you that there's not very many people that do know and even know to look for it, let alone anything else, right?
Great point. Just being mindful of time, I believe we had till 1:45 or 7:45 on your agenda. And I know when I'm on the boards I'm on, that things there's a lot going on. So
Yeah, you've actually got until 8.
Oh, perfect. We got a few extra minutes. Oh, perfect. Sorry. I am going to just, in that, I might shift to the second question. However, I do want to acknowledge I wasn't able to get to everyone if they did have comments. Something Ashley is going to do is provide a form, an online form, where if there's additional information you want to share or you didn't get the opportunity to share for these questions that we are asking, please feel free to add your insights into there. And all of that data will be looked at as a part of the process. Just want to be mindful of everyone's time and what you need to do, and make sure we can get through one of the other ones where my wheels are spinning a little bit as we're hearing some of the problems. But I guess what the second question would be super curious about, again, from the perspective of this group, what are the future considerations that might need to be had that perhaps even HCSB isn't thinking about today, or may not even be incorporating into the plan for this next 4 years, but it's in the horizon. Like, we can see it's something that's coming. It's going to significantly impact the way people learn, the resource availability, whatever it might be. I'm super curious to what in your minds is that future thing that needs to be considered within education for Halton that again, we're maybe not thinking about right now. And perhaps to give it a little bit of guardrails, just because it's one that seems to be really prevalent in almost all of the conversations we're in. The idea of like AI has been brought up, and how does that tool get leveraged? What are the risks of it? What are the benefits? And so that's created some conversation and dialogue, but those are the types of things we'd be considering. Others have actually brought in the need to evolve the skill competencies, think about how do we foster connection. So really it is quite open-ended, and I apologize for that, but hopefully we can, the clarification there can help give some insight as to what we'd be looking for within this question. I'll give a few moments for reflection, and then again, I'll invite any feedback from the room. Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, you basically took the words out of my mouth. Absolutely, the technology aspect. Technology is developing far faster than we're even able to keep up with it. The use of AI and that for which obviously has its good and bad parts to it, but I mean, I think there needs to be a lot more focus. I think that there's going to be a lot of, in the future, technology-based jobs, technology-based learning, technology-based everything. That's the direction we've been consistently heading, and it's just getting more complicated. So I think ingraining that in the kids and teaching them how to use this different software, and not just Google software, like using Adobe, using Word, like Microsoft stuff, using Apple stuff, having it not just be one focus of this is the system that we use and therefore that's what you're going to learn, because I regularly use Google because I prefer it, but a lot of my coworkers don't. And so if I'm not able to understand, at least at a basic level, to cross-platform, then I'm at a disadvantage right out of the gate. And so having the kids know how to use this different technology in their day-to-day life, I think it'll be a big thing for them being able to move forward in a positive and keep up with everybody. Especially when it comes to our kids, like the special needs kids, because this isn't the regular mainstream that is already keeping up with technology. These are ones that need that extra support. They need that extra knowledge. And I'm sure that they'll pick it up. I know my kid does, but they'll pick it up relatively quickly. But they need to be exposed to it, and they need to have access to it, and they need to have regular access to it.
Yeah, I even wonder on your point there. I know it's I was doing a conference recently, and there was some dialogue about AI, and an individual shared a story about needing to build a website and learn Python, which is a coding language. He's like, I knew nothing about it, but he utilized his know-how of AI in terms of engaging with it and reflecting on it critically to essentially implement this set of code from knowing nothing to having a fully operating system within 2 days, which was only like working at night for a few hours. So like the curiosity for me within that is, it's as much as learning the platforms, and also with this tool, like how do you leverage that tool to teach you and then evaluate the information that might be coming from it and such, which I think is also a really interesting element to consider with what you said there, Amanda. Any others have thoughts or comments that they'd like to add? Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks. You know, a lot of what we've been talking about has been around, you know, we need this or we need that, and it takes more resources. I wonder if, in terms of what's coming in the future, probably fewer resources, right? If we think about, we look at the fiscal situation of our province and of the country, I don't think huge, injections of extra funding are going to be forthcoming, and it could go the opposite way. So, are there, contingency plans in place? And I mean, I know it's difficult to do. Like, we're trying to think about what's the future of special education, but have we thought about what's the future of special education if our budget's cut by 20%? I don't know if that's a relevant consideration, or maybe that's too much to, on the scope of what we can do. But that's always a concern, right? Because everything we say, we're already struggling and we need more resources. But I think realistically, we need to consider the opposite scenario.
Yeah, there seems to be that consistent theme across organizations we work with of like less with more. It more with less is and so to your point, it's an interesting perspective as to what, if less occurred, what could we do? Yeah. I mean,
there's certainly a technology component to that. In education, it's really difficult to deliver. It's a people business, right? So technology can only go so far.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Any others have?
Sorry, it's Alison here down in the little corner.
Yeah.
I would reiterate that comment from Erin. One of I think the biggest risks that we face right now for our group is a lack of focus on the needs of non-typical students. So I think students that need additional resources are seen as a drain by our government rather than a valuable member of our community. And I worry greatly that these budgets will be cut because they're seen as nice to haves rather than part of our legal system. And we have to start planning for that. We have to start planning for when the money is cut, what systems will we have put in place? So is it the technology? Have we made our kids fully able to operate in a regular classroom using technology to allow them to meet their potential? Have we got that in place by the time the money runs out? Have we taught our kids, other kids, that, making accessible documents is just part of what we do as human beings when we create a document? How do we bring non-typical students to be recognized as just a fundamental part of society? Because if everybody recognizes that, then we won't be left out of the conversation. So I think there's some work that needs to be done in raising the profile of what our children need and why they are so valuable in our society.
Yeah, that's great. That's great comments. Thank you for sharing. Any others? Nadina?
Hi, I just to go on top of that. I think just understanding, honestly, and education for educators around universal design. I think that's one of those things that as a school board, it's really important for the educators to understand how does that happen and what do you need to do. So when you have the funds, when you have the resources, how can we make all of those classrooms accessible for everybody? So spending that time and energy right now to really push that idea of universal design. I think that's really, really important.
That's great. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just add on to that? And
Sure, go ahead.
I also don't think it should be a choice. Like, this isn't a choice for teachers to implement universal design for learning. This is a fundamental part of being an accessible classroom. And if you can't do that, you shouldn't be in the job. Maybe you're going to need lots of training and lots of support, but this is what we demand, just as we demand accommodations and support for people at work, we demand it in the classroom. And so universal design for learning can no longer be an option for a teacher.
And that comes back down
That,
to my
what
previous
you
comment
just
about
said.
accountability, right?
Yeah. I think even as an enabler, possibly with like do more with less, that might be where a tool like AI could be leveraged to figure out how do we. I know there's some interesting research coming out. I think it was UMN that mentioned Google, but they really seem to be leading the way in creating accessibility with that tool in classrooms and such. And they're noticing now that after the teacher has designed their curriculum, they can ask the tool to create it into multiple different forms. So it could say, put it in analogies that are sport reference, put them in dance, put them in art, put it like so that it can become more meaningful and targeted to individuals, which, and also seeing some comments here, could create possibly more space for relationship engagement versus needing to spend time on designing all of those elements that you had alluded to, which is interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Amanda.
Just lastly, I was coming back from soccer practice when we first started this, and so my son was listening to some of your questions at the beginning, and you just brought up something that reminded me of what he said, and he wanted to have his input, which was having teachers be more cool, like have them be more relatable, having them want to, like, to have them be like they want to be there. Yeah. So, on your note, like you said, putting things into something that grabs that kid's attention, having them do something like that. It's so easy to do, and it's such a, I understand maybe it takes a little bit more effort, and maybe it takes that little bit extra work, but ultimately at the end of the day, I can speak for my son, who he did a project he had the opportunity to do, and they changed the science project from whatever it was to make me a project on the difference between gas-powered vehicles and electric vehicles. And he got the same learning from it. It was environmental or something along those lines, but he got the same learning from it. But because it was focused to him and what his interests are, he was all over it. Had he been forced to do it the way that everybody else had to do it, he would have not even done it. So that was his input, was just to have the teachers be a little more relatable and a little more cool. And I think that just kind of played off of what you were already saying.
Yeah, and something I can even share on that is just like an experience that we've been having as facilitating this and having worked inside of other school systems. The thing that always resonates, and obviously there's outliers, however, the consistent thing that I would say we tend to experience is you have deeply passionate and resilient individuals doing everything possible to facilitate the types of experiences you're talking about, and they're falling short. And to me, it's not a fault of theirs necessarily. It's more often a reliance on those passionate, resilient individuals to uphold what we even have versus the system being designed in a way to enable those passionate, resilient individuals. Instead, they're needing to overcome barriers and like get through. And that's the like wickedness and complexity of the problem that hits my heart when doing this work. Is you see these people struggling and doing everything in their will to get this done, and then it's still not enough. And it is, you know, to be vulnerable, it is heartbreaking in some ways to listen to and observe. And I'm like, how can we change this? Because it's not working. And anyways, I just thought I would share that because I felt that energy that no one's here blaming individual, but I just wanted to add that to as something we've been experiencing in the conversations as well. With that, is there any final thoughts? And again, we'll make sure that there's that form in the chat for you. If you do have more you want to share and just didn't get the space to do it here, or maybe didn't feel comfortable, really encourage you to do so. that form will be different than the survey that's currently going around. The form creates space for qualitative expression of your experiences or your thoughts, and really welcome them in any which way you want to do that. If there is more you do want to share. But this was amazing for me personally to get a chance to listen and hear the insights. So thank you for inviting us to the space and sharing. But is there any final thoughts or comments before we do wrap up my portion? Because again, I want to be respectful of your time.
No, I'd just like to thank you for facilitating this. It's always great when we have an opportunity to really reflect on what's going well, what's an opportunity. COVID has given us an opportunity to change the way we do things. And so I think all of us are trying to come and recognize that it brought difficulties, but also that technology is improving and that we can find different ways of doing things. So I really want to thank you, and I want to wish you all the best with your continued work. I know it's probably a very long process, but thank you for coming here to gain some insight from SEAC, and our members will add more to the form if they have other additional comments they want to make.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much again for your time, and we'll be in touch, I'm sure, in the future. And just as I do wrap, just to give you next steps, we're finishing the survey collection over the next few weeks, and then we'll be, to your point, getting into all of the qualitative, like all the data and experiences that have been shared in multiple places, and then moving back with the trustees and executive committee in the summer to help present, hey, this is all the perspectives that we heard and the considerations we may want to make as we form that future plan. So again, thanks for the space, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to us at any time.
Great. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Well, that was interesting and a really great exercise to go through. So we're now at one of our key things that we have to do each year, which is to determine our support or not for the special education plan. So we've been reviewing, and last meeting we reviewed the special education plan, and we had a discussion around that. In a little while, we're going to go to a vote by organisation, members at large and trustees. So there will be one representative from each organisation will be able to make a vote. The vote is not to approve the plan, it is whether we support it. And that information will inform our trustees as they go back to the board for the final determination of the special education plan. But before we get to that stage, I'd like to ask everybody, are there any questions or any things that people have had time to mull over that they want to raise before we get into the voting? One other point I just want to make is if organizations or committee members do not agree with the do not support the special education plan, there is the option to draft and submit a minority report to the chair of the board outlining concerns that then gets attached to the special education plan. So even if the plan is approved or is supported by the majority, each organizational member has the ability to have their concerns listed with the plan. But before we get to that, does anybody have any comments that they want to make about the special education plan and anything that they want to raise before we go to a vote? Kate.
So if we would like to support but still raise concerns, which is possible, because it's possible to understand that, the special education plan may be in the form it needs to be under the circumstances we are under, but still want to express that we're not happy with the circumstances that we're currently under. That the way to reflect that is still to do minority report?
Yes, I'm just looking here at Colette. Apparently, yes, that is the case. You can support and still draft a minority report outlining any concerns that you do have.
And when does that need to be submitted by, the minority report?
I'll let Colette answer that.
Yeah, thanks for those questions, Kate. And to be clear, anyone can submit a minority report on any topic at any time. So it gets appended to the special education plan. So just want to make sure that everyone knows that it is a standing option for an association.
So there's not a specific deadline on that.
So I would say that the special education plan is going back to the Board of Trustees on June 19th. So in 2 weeks for final vote. So if you would like the letter or the minority report to be mentioned to the Board of Trustees in that forum, your deadline would be sometime before, it would be the Thursday before that. I can get you the date in just a second. However, if you're not so concerned about it being mentioned in front of trustees, the special education plan is posted to the HDSB website over the summer, and our deadline for that is July 31st. We have to be compliant with the ministry. And so you could certainly submit it in July and have it added to the posted plan.
Okay, thank you.
So are there any other questions or comments regarding the special education plan? Okay, so I'm going to go through the list of associations. Where there is one representative who's able to vote for each association. So, Kate, for the Association for Bright Children, do you support the special education plan?
We do, but the association has expressed interest in also expressing some concerns to the trustees.
Okay, thank you.
I'll likely be doing both.
Okay, thank you very much. Autism Ontario, I'm not sure, Amanda or Jennifer, which one of you is the voting representative?
I think I've been nominated.
Great. Okay, Amanda?
So we're voting nay.
I'm sorry, you're voting?
No,
You're
not
voting?
support. Once the money's gone, it's gone, and we're not going to get it back. So we're not in support of it being taken in the first place.
Okay. All right. Sorry, can we just get a clarification on that? So I'll let...
Sorry, Amanda, I couldn't hear you. What once is taken?
I said once we, we're not in support of the money being taken at all. And once we agree to that money being taken, then it's gone. It's never going to come back our way. So we're not in support of it being taken as it is.
Okay, great. So we've recorded you as a no. The Centre for Diverse Learners will support the plan. Nadina Torek for the Community Living Burlington.
We would support.
Is Evelyn Bursey here? I don't know whether she arrived late. Okay, and there's no other representative from Community Living North Halton. Okay, for Easter Seals, Sarah.
We support the plan.
Sophia Siddiqui, I don't think I saw Sophia here tonight. Okay. Erin Rupel from Opvic. I'm not sure I saw Erin either. Erin Sproul, Voice.
Voice supports the plan.
Kaiser Claassen. Oh, Kaiser, thank you very much. Yep. Support. Katie Schleifer.
Support.
Okay. And we have our trustees. So we have two trustees present tonight. Carol Baxter.
Yes, thanks, support.
And I'm going to do this badly again. Jinyi Zhang.
Support.
Okay. So with that, the majority supports the plan, and so the motion or the decision of the SEAC committee is to support the plan. Again, if anybody wishes to create a minority report, I would encourage you to do that as soon as possible, so that it can go to the trustees for raising at the board meeting. If obviously these are important issues, and so I would encourage you to do so. But if you miss the deadline, then they will get included in the July date. So when is the date that?
So trustees receive the board package on June 13th, which is next Thursday at the end of day. So if the letter was submitted to the chair of the board prior to the end of the business day, although I will ask trustees, Trustee Zhang and Trustee Baxter, if it would be amenable if we received a report after that, but before or during the board meeting on the 19th, that letter could be circulated in that moment.
Yes, that sounds fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We're now at item 3.2, which is a SEAC discussion or question period. Does anybody have any questions they want to raise? Sarah.
Hi, yeah, this actually has to do with the special education plan, but not the vote per se. I'm just wondering if it would be possible to have like a subcommittee because the ministry obviously has the standards, right, for what needs to be involved in a special education plan, but to have a subcommittee of SEAC who sort of looks at the standards like 1 or 2 a month kind of thing. I think there's 18, but they can report back briefly, like even like a 5-minute report back as part of the committee reports, just to get a really fulsome sort of understanding. So it becomes part of the discussion sort of every meeting. It's just an idea. I was Easter Seals SEAC reps, provincial SEAC reps meet as a group, and that came up for discussion, and I understand some SEACs do that.
That certainly sounds very interesting. What we could do is, does anybody want to add any comments to that right now? Do you think it would be a good idea for us?
I think it would be a good idea.
Okay, so what I suggest is perhaps at the beginning of the next school year, we kind of raise this, put this on the agenda and see if there's a group that would like to do this work, and see how we might go through those and give us enough time. Yeah, Colette.
Sarah, I like the idea of going through, the plan, or speaking to an aspect of the plan in each meeting. And I wonder, much like the association presentations, and that we really benefit from a different person speaking to it each month, that we look at everyone signing up for a standard that then and a month to do that report back, a deep dive into that standard, facilitate a conversation around it, so that every member of SEAC has an opportunity to have that in-depth experience as well as facilitate the session.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. It sounds very much like something that should be in our standing reports.
I like that idea, Colette. Yeah. Sorry, I jumped in. And I think that way, too, it sort of lightens the load, right? Because
yes.
It's like, oh, another committee, right? As opposed to if you sign up to look at like 1 or 2 standards, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
So we'll add that to the agenda for, it will be September time now. So we'll add that to the agenda and see if there's a list where we can get people to sign up and get a better understanding, maybe do a couple of months. So that by the time we get to the Spec Ed plan next year, we've got a fulsome understanding. Okay, any other questions at this time? There was one letter that was raised and sent out, the PAC letter. I just want to get some feedback from SEAC. There was obviously an encouragement by PAC to return to in-person meetings. Obviously, Colette, myself, and Carolyn are here on our own in the room, because under the guidelines, we actually have to be physically present. I guess the question is hybrid working for everybody? Does everybody like hybrid, or would you prefer to be in person? How's it going? Amanda?
To be honest, I am so busy. Like I said earlier, I was at soccer and now I'm home, but I think if I had to come in person, I would be at a lot less, where this time around I've been at every meeting. So for what it's worth, I prefer the hybrid.
Great. Yep. Kate?
I can sometimes be my better self because I don't have to figure out how to scarf my dinner, rush over there, and, I'm less exhausted, and so I can be more present. I would rather be in there in person, but sometimes I know that I'm doing better by not being there in person.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. Was there one more hand up there?
Yeah, me again. Sorry, it's Sarah.
Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate the hybrid. I would love to be in person, and I'm even in Burlington, so it's not that big a deal for me. But just with spouses returning to in-person jobs and things and traveling, and it's not always possible. I still have younger kids at home, so I appreciate the hybrid. And I think too, it allows, as the PAC letter said, it allows for people, like if you had to come from Georgetown or Halton Hills or Acton, I mean, that could be incredibly difficult. So I think it's good, and I think it encourages participation.
Great. Okay. Thank you. All right. So if there aren't any more questions, we'll move on. Oh, no, Erin?
I just had a quick question about what is our quorum requirement? Because I think a lot of people are expressing, and I feel the same way. I mean, I love being in person, but since my job changed from being in Hamilton to now I'm downtown Toronto, it's it used to be I could stay late at the office and come in person, but I can't do that anymore. So I always have intentions of driving down to Burlington for these meetings, but life seems to get in the way, ever since then. So, if we were to move to, in person, or some of the meetings had to be in person or something like that, I think we would have a lot lower attendance. So, what is our quorum requirement?
So we just checked that today. The quorum requirement is 50% plus one. So, and it's for all members, all members on SEAC. So for organizations that have a representative and an alternate, both of those people count. So, even if, they're only planning to turn up when the representative isn't here, they actually both count for quorum. So we have 18 people who are voting members, and so we need 9 plus 1. So we need 10 people to be at our meeting. So again, I agree. It becomes very difficult if we don't have that hybrid option about actually getting enough people to have quorum, but that's what the rule is.
And the rules are set by the ministry, is that right?
Yes.
We don't have any flexibility there.
No.
I mean, for you specifically.
Yeah, no. No, Colette and I have to be here. To chair it, you have to be here in the building. Okay, so any other questions? If not, we're going to move to item 4.1, which is the superintendent's report.
Thanks, Alison. Before I turn it over to Conan to provide a couple of updates on some things that are winding up, as well as one or two things that are ahead, I want to say thank you for all of the hard work this year around the special education plan. I think this is my third special education plan, and certainly the toughest. in terms of the fiscal challenges and the efficiencies, and really working to maintain our supports for students while meeting those financial challenges and commitments. So thank you for everyone for your good thinking, your input, and your support, and even for that non-support in terms of articulating your concern around that financial piece on Autism Ontario. So thanks for that. And I'm going to turn it over to Conan, who's going to speak about a couple of things.
Thank you, Colette. So coming up, our 36th annual Special Athletics Track Meet is on Friday, June 14th, 2024. It's at Garth Webb Secondary School in Oakville. It will be running from 9:30 a.m. till 1:30 p.m. with opening ceremonies at 10 a.m. This year we have over 530 athletes participating, which is up from just around 450 last year. Lots of activities, events, and sports that give our students the opportunities to showcase their skills and also celebrate their successes. And we also have lots of volunteers coming from Emily Carr Public School and also some of the Garth Webb High School students as well. I'd also like to thank Audrey Drazma and her team for another successful Saturday parenting coaching session that is working with parents who have children with autism. Last Saturday it concluded a 9-week session. That was in Burlington at Alexander's. It was without a doubt the biggest turnout we've had of all the sessions that we've done for the parents and families. The parents learned a ton from Audrey and her team, but more importantly, I would think that the parents really were able to make connections with other parents, started a WhatsApp group, and really made some new friendships in that group. It was great. And there was a dad actually who made us some amazing Turkish coffee, which was a highlight also as well too. I'd also really like to take the opportunity to publicly acknowledge Audrey Drazma. She is one of our instructional program leaders. After 34 years in education, she is retiring at the end of June. It is very bittersweet for us. We obviously are going to miss Audrey greatly, but we're excited for her in her retirement, and it is very well deserved. Audrey has dedicated her entire adult, personal, and professional life to working with students with special needs and supporting families with special needs. Many of the documents, processes, things that we have in our school came directly from Audrey. She is invaluable and she is irreplaceable. And she will be greatly missed. I've only been in this job for a year, and I think in the last year, the exponential learning I have received from Audrey has been something I've never had truly in my career. And I'm not just saying that, it's not hyperbole, that really is true, what I've learned from Audrey in the last year. So thank you, Audrey, for all that you've done. I'd also like to again thank our structured reading itinerant resource teachers, all 8 of our teachers. Their time in their roles is coming to an end. They're still with us. They're still going to be working in schools and in other capacities, but I would like to publicly acknowledge them too. A lot of the tiers for your reading support that has been rolled out in our system is truly thanks to them and their hard work and dedication to helping our students read. So again, I'd like to publicly acknowledge them. I'd also like to publicly acknowledge we have a number of educational assistants who do an itinerant role where they're assigned to different schools, sometimes on a daily basis, sometimes on a weekly or monthly basis to support our students. We are changing our central team. We're expanding the team into some different roles, into some different capacities. So some of those educational assistants are going back into the schools, directly working in schools, and some will be adopting new roles centrally. But I would like to publicly acknowledge that support team. They've been absolutely fabulous. They will continue to support students in other capacities, but I would like to publicly acknowledge them as well too. And I think that's all I've got. Thank you, Colette.
That's great. Thank you. And again, thank you to all of the staff, administrative level, teachers, educators, all the staff in the schools for what has been another fabulous school year. So I just wanted to, again, thank everybody who puts their time and efforts into supporting the environment of learning that our children receive, and all children in Halton receive through the Halton District School Board. So thank you very much for that. So at this time, we now have the association reports. If any association has something that they'd like to share with us, please, do you want to raise your hand? Sarah.
Hi, yeah, I just want to mention that Easter Seals had celebrated the National Accessibility Week from May 27th to 31st inclusive, with Red Shirt Day on Wednesday, May 29th. And I'm hoping that Halton District School Board will participate in Red Shirt Day next year. I know some schools did. So I'm hoping that it'll be board-wide next year, and I'm going to be sending a link for the minutes video I've been asked to share about enhancing accessibility, inclusivity, in schools for students with disabilities.
Thank you. And I saw another hand up. Was that Jennifer?
Yep, that's me.
Great.
I have a whole list of things from Autism Ontario because we are going to be off for so many months. So we have the David Conforti Reach for the Stars Award. Online only applications for this award will be accepted from May 1st all the way until June 30th, 2024. We have the Building Brighter Futures Fund, and that applications for that will open in July of 2024. We have a bunch of seminars. We have Journey to Adulthood, Woodland Arts activities for National Indigenous Peoples Day. The Awesome Moms and Rad Dads groups are still joining or still carrying on over the summer. And we also have an information session on how to submit OAP. We have Weekend at the Zoo coming up. Registration opens tomorrow. And all of that information can be found on our website, autismontario.com, under events.
Sounds like a very busy summer, but that sounds wonderful.
So full.
That's great. Are there any other associations that would like to share? Okay, so we now move on to the trustees' report.
Thank you. Nothing specific to share this evening, but just a big thank you from all of the trustees to the members of this committee for serving, and also for participating tonight in the MYP session. It's a big task that we're working on, as you heard from the consultant, to develop the next MYP, and we really appreciate your time and your input in that process. So thanks so much.
Great, thank you. So we're at item 4.4, the committee reports. We've got some standing committees, just going to see if there's anything to add. I think Evelyn is not here tonight. But Kate, is there anything from the Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy Steering and Advisory Committee?
There is not. We had our last meeting before SEAC's last meeting. So
okay.
We're adjourned till next year.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So we're at item 5.0, which is the next agenda or order paper. We have obviously come up with a new idea, great idea from Sarah about getting some more information and building our knowledge next year. So we'll make sure that that gets added. Again, over the summer, if there's things that people think of that they would like to have, that would be great. We'll also maybe do a brainstorming session at the beginning of the year to think about things that SEAC members would like to have as presentations and to broaden their awareness and understanding of what is being done in the schools and how that they can provide feedback from the community into those programs. So at item 6, I once again want to thank everybody for all of your hard work and all of your efforts in supporting the families that you advocate for supporting all exceptional students and all students throughout the Halton District School Board. It is a volunteer position. We know how valuable time is and that you take this time out from being away with your families to commit to this work. So thank you. And we will see you in September. Have a wonderful summer and come back refreshed, ready to start another round of work. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you in the new school year.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great summer, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.